Hey, we're here.
Hello, Thompson.
Hey, it's Beth Troutman. What are you doing here?
I feel like I haven't talked to you in forever.
I know it has been almost a whole half day.
How do we make it through? Well, welcome everybody to 2024's first Talktoberfest evening. I know it's not quite October, but tomorrow is October. So we thought we would kick it off tonight on the final day of September, Bo, because, we like to be different.
Well, yeah, and we have so many different Talktoberfest stops this month. It's more ambitious than ever. I was looking at the schedule here. So you and me kick it off tonight, and then you have 8 other Facebook Live Mondays or Wednesdays, and then it culminates on the penultimate day of October of this upcoming month with Talktoberfest, which is back at News and Brews at Heist Brewery and Barrel Arts, where we've been many times now. So basically this month leads up to the actual in-person gathering. And hopefully we're going to have a whole bunch of our friends join us tonight for another one of these. I love this because it's a different setting. It's a different opportunity. It's more laid back. It's me in my studio here and you in your library. And I want to see an example of one of your embossed books.
You know what's funny is I have my embosser right here. Stand by. When I stand up, I'm wearing sweatpants, so I'm business up top, party down at the bottom.
Yeah, this is the famous Beth Troutman library, where if you have been listening to the show, she just recently got an embosser that she can emboss. Are you like on a quest to emboss all of those books behind you?
Uh-huh.
How many have you done?
Not a lot. So we're moving soon, and I figured I would. So I'm planning on our new house. I'm planning on alphabetizing. I'm trying to figure out my organization system for my books. I may do a Dewey Decimal System. I don't know, but I figure I can emboss all of the books that I have not yet embossed when I'm putting them on the new shelf. This is my embosser. It's so official, isn't it? And here I have a book that I
have a stapler. Does that count?
So I have a book that I just got. So let's see. So what I've been doing is embossing basically the title page. So here's how it works. I mean, I know you guys know how an embosser works, but it's so cool.
See, this is what we needed to have in the promos as to what we were going to do here. We're actually going to have live
Everyone
embossing.
wanted to see this. So you just slide it right in there. And you just stamp it.
Beth rules.
Yeah, she does. Hey, Bernie.
Can you? Oh, it's too bright.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but it embosses and it says from the library of Beth Troutman.
Well, so we already have people lining up here in the chat room. Hello to Rodney and Cassidy Hooper. Hey, look, Nick Craig is on here. Is this the same Nick Craig who now hosts the Carolina the Carolina Journal News Hour, which precedes us every day? It is. Well, that's
sorry, Nick.
Cool.
And everyone, I have to put on my glasses because I can't read the chat unless I have my glasses on. I didn't need it for embossing, which I know that was riveting TV. But I can't read without them. So hi, how are you seeing who's in?
You have to click on the comments. You're probably in the private chat.
I had this wrong.
You thought I was just not talking to you. Michael has joined us. Hi, Michael. We got Bobby Gray. We got Aaron in here.
So Michael says, "What is the good morrow equivalent of evening?"
I don't know. We need Steve.
Let's see if I can find out. Sorry, someone just rang my doorbell, so my dogs are going nuts. Good evening, Shakespeare.
So while you're looking that up, I was talking to Winterble this afternoon. He says he may do a drive-by here. We have Nick Craig, which is the first team member and the newest team member that we have on WBT, but he's the first team member to drop by. And Jensen usually makes an appearance, and Beth and I try to stop by. I mean, it's going to be ambitious this month because we have so many of these, but that's one of the things I like about this is not only do we have so many great listeners, but members of the team support each other here. And that's always fun too.
So basically it is good Ian Goodfellow. It's spelled E''Ian. Good Ian, good fellow.
Boy, did that contest not take off like wildfire?
Yes, it's been seriously. I mean, if you listen to Good Morning BT, which I hope that you all do, we do not shy away from fun contests. I mean, one of our favorites. We had I don't know if you guys all remember the yacht rock band that came in and they played songs on the kazoo. We've done every version of Name That Blank. We've done, oh gosh, songs that we hate, and you had to guess who it was. But of all of the contests that we've done, this one was hands down the most fun. I don't think, I mean, every day after we did the contest, my head hurt right back here from laughing, just because we laughed so much. And I think people enjoyed it.
Well, we have always been of the opinion, like we get, as a radio station and as a radio show, so many different things to give away every year, and technically they sent, but I just dropped my computer. Sorry. Technically, they say give it to caller number 10, right? And Beth and I said that's boring. We want to do something that everybody can participate in, and even if you aren't calling, then you can kind of play in the car along with everybody else. And so we decided long ago that if we're going to give away stuff, we're going to make it fun for everybody, and we want it to be not always the same thing. And so that's why we do it that way. But I think I've had more and more people tell us, I'm in the car and I knew that answer, but I just couldn't get there. And I don't want to do a contest that's only fun for the one person who calls in and wins. I want to do a contest where everybody sort of plays along together, and we're happy when one of the listeners wins, right?
Oh my gosh, so happy. It's one of the most wonderful things is someone winning a contest that's as kind of obscure and bizarre as that one. I don't know. I feel like a proud parent or something every time somebody wins. I want to jump through the radio microphone and hug the people who win, because it really is. The thing that was so fun about it is people listening in the car who weren't initially on the phone, but who listened to the first round of the competition, and they were like, oh my gosh, I know it. And then we would see all of the lines light up because we knew that somebody had figured out what the Shakespearean language version of that song was. I mean, oh my gosh, it was just, and I hope it sent people into their work days with a smile on their face, because I mean, my gosh, this has been one of the most bizarre election cycles. The news cycle has just been heartbreaking in so many ways, and devastating, certainly with everything that has gone on just in the last 72 hours here in North Carolina. So there are things that we try to do to help people, keep taking steps forward and keep trying to pay it forward with a smile on their face. Because otherwise, like, there are things that are so incredibly difficult that are going on right now.
Well, and truth be told, I wasn't sure how many people would join us tonight, because we didn't talk about this much on the air today for obvious reasons, I think. We were talking so much about Western North Carolina, and I know we had some promos about this, but everything as it normally is we have situations several times a year of tragic breaking news, but this one obviously is at a different level because it's so close to home, and it's still developing as we speak right now. There's a part of me right now that feels a little bit strange doing anything but focusing on what's happening in Western North Carolina. But as Beth and I've tried to do and be over the years, is as you mentioned, with politics and with the weightiness of things that are going on in the world, and often in 2024 they have been tragic and somber things. Where we can and where it's appropriate, we also like to give people a moment to catch their breath and give people a chance to, take that moment of levity when needed. And mornings like today weren't the time to do that, but tonight here we can kind of sit back and enjoy each other's company, all the while praying and watching. I just was watching the NBC nightly news before I came downstairs. My wife and I watched that most nights, and just seeing the pictures. And then you remind yourself that this is just down the road. It's right down I-40. A lot of us frequent that area all the time. And so as we're doing the show this morning, we have a plan of what we're going to do. And we had guests that we were going to talk to, but then we get calls from people who have their own stories to tell. And it's what I believe the 50,000 watt blowtorch that we have is meant for in times like this. And sometimes it's to transmit information. Sometimes it's just to be a voice. So people out there know that other people are going through the same thing, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, one of the things that, I think is so unique about what we do. I spent the first 20 years of my career in television, and you tell these stories, you tell these news stories, but it's done in 30-second sound bites and minute 32-minute news packages that are kind of edited together with images. And what's so unique about what we do is that, like today, we had conversations and extensive conversations with, like Jim Landis joined us today, and he's a volunteer firefighter, and he had been involved in the search and rescue. And we just got to talk to him in a real way and on a human level. And callers who have had experiences trying to get to friends and family members, just people, experiencing the world. We're all experiencing it together. And the way that we do our show, we get to process it with each other, with our listeners. And you and I, Bo, I mean, you're like my brother, and we're so close now that we process these things together and lean on each other as support systems. You're my support system in, well, kind of everything, but certainly when we cover stories that are difficult. And so we're really, really lucky in that we get to do the job that we do in the way that we get to do it, because we get to just be with all of you out there and let you be part of it. And kind of what we're doing tonight, which because of everything that's going on, we wanted tonight to let you all guide the conversation. And in this chat that we have up, I have to put my glasses back on so I can see it, but we want you to ask the questions to guide us about what you want us to talk about, because, Bo and I are certainly right now, like he said, we've been in the mode of covering just such a heartbreaking, devastating story. And like he was saying, so many of us have visited and spend so much time in all of these places. I was on the phone with my little brother right before I hopped on this chat, and we spend a lot of time. He and I both have January birthdays, and we spent our birthday together in Lake Lure with my husband, his wife, his little girl. We all went up together and spent time in Lake Lure, and we were in downtown Chimney Rock, and we have this favorite little burger place that we would always go to called River Watch, and all of it is gone. And thinking about that and how the communities there are just reeling from that. That's just been hard to process. And so I just feel really, really lucky that we have been able to get information to people. I feel lucky that we're in a position where we can help communicate to people who haven't been able to get a lot of information, and we're able to tell stories in ways that allow people to come in and tell a story that might not be heard otherwise. So.
Hello to Will Timms. The great Will Timms has joined us, our good buddy. So
hi, Will.
Let's see here. Michael says, has Pat said how things are at Lake Jimmy? We actually talked to Pat McCrory, the governor, last two shows, today and on Friday. He went up to Lake Jimmy, or Lake James, as most people call it, this weekend, and said that it's a mess. It's not as bad as some areas, but he said that his dock was out of place, and if you look around the cove that he's in, the water's obviously very high. He's not talking about the kind of damage that you're seeing in far western areas of North Carolina. But again, another thing. So we did talk to him about it, and he said he's like everybody else. I mean, I think we're all to a degree, especially here in Charlotte, sort of reorienting our perspective, right? I mean, last weekend or the week before last, we were talking about the 35th anniversary of Hurricane Hugo. Beth was in Charlotte then. I was in Charlotte then. We weren't, working yet. We were still in grade school, but that's always been sort of a point of delineation. If you lived here then, it's what you measure all the other storms by, the ones that come through here. And I think all that changed this past weekend. And not to take anything away from what happened with Hugo, because different people had different degrees of damage. But I know, for the most part in greater Charlotte, what most people dealt with during Hugo were downed trees. They dealt, no power, of course. I was out of school for 2 weeks in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. So I have all kinds of, friends who are school and classmates that were in the same boat. And there were people who had big time damage to their homes, and there were, fatalities in Hugo. But the main story for the Charlotte region was all of the trees down and all of the power outages and to go through that and being, I think what we said, you were in 7th grade. I was in 8th grade. Is that right, Beth?
I was 7th. So you would have been 9th.
Yeah. Okay. So, but you and I, that's kind of ingrained in us, that period of time. And then I sat this weekend, was thinking, what would we be saying if we had experienced what's going on and Lake Lure and Asheville and Hendersonville and some of these places, these rural areas that are probably not getting enough mention because they're not the metro areas up there or some semblance of the most populated areas. But what will we be saying now? My perspective is shifted because now all of a sudden this weekend, we had lost power, I guess, right before I went to work on Friday and got it back late Saturday night. And all of a sudden that is nothing.
Yeah.
So I think this storm as we speak is sort of reorienting our perspective as to, the things you take for granted. Right.
Yeah. And there were one of my friends from Los Angeles sent me a text about an hour ago and it was worried because she didn't know how close we were to Asheville, and they on the West Coast are seeing all of the images that are coming in from, Biltmore Village and from the Arts District in Asheville and from Lake Lure and Hickory Bridge and all of that. And she was, really concerned. So this, I think, even nationally, I think is going to be a similar story to, what Katrina was in the early 2000s, because the nation is now, I think, rallying behind the western part of North Carolina, the eastern part of Tennessee, trying to figure out ways to help and ways to rebuild and ways to get people out. Right now so many people are stuck in homes and don't have ways out because so many of the roads are washed away and some of the small secondary bridges are washed out. And I mean, it's something I don't think any of us ever could have imagined that we would see. And I think that's what's been so hard about it, because you can't really wrap your mind around the images that you see and connect them to the places that we know so well.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Hugo, and there are comparisons to be made, but I heard it several times today, and I can't disagree. I mean, Katrina is the storm that's starting to become maybe the one that'll be more associated with this level of damage. I mean, what this has done to these parts of North Carolina. And again, I got several notes today that kept saying there are parts of Asheville that are hard hit. There are other parts of Asheville that are okay compared to some of these rural communities, the ones we don't hear about, and some of us have never been to in the rural parts of Western North Carolina, and of course into Tennessee and upstate South Carolina. So I think, that's the other part of this is I feel like there's a whole lot of this that we don't know about yet. And to say that at this point, when what we have seen is just mind blowing, I think this is going to be one of those stories that as connectivity comes back, and that could be months, forget connectivity, think about water, fresh water and enough food. I mean, it's going to be a long time before we have the full scope of what just happened. And I have a feeling it's going to be far more than most of us can imagine, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, especially with, I-40 being the fact that I-40 collapsed, that stretch of I-40 eastbound. I mean, that impacts the entire eastern seaboard in a lot of ways, because it's so many truckers use that to transport goods and items. And so I think people are going to be feeling this in different ways across the East Coast, certainly across the Southeast. And as Florida tries to rebuild, as out the eastern or the western part of our state and the eastern part of Tennessee start to rebuild, like Bo said, it's going to be a while before we know. Diva is on and says, hello, Bo and Beth. Sorry, I have to keep putting my glasses on and off. Hi, Diva. Thank you so much for joining us. We so appreciate it. And Nick Craig says that ham radio has been a lifesaver. You're absolutely right, Nick. We heard from several people today that talked about having ham radios and being able to communicate because of, or at least get information because of ham radios. And I have a bubbly, so I know I'm not doing a beer for Talktoberfest, but I do have a bubbly.
I have these are one of the pint glasses. If you've been to News and Brews that we give out, and no, mine doesn't have anything in it right now because I actually forgot to pour it. But if you come to News and Brews at the end of all this, culminating this month, I have a feeling if you don't have one already, you'll be able to score yourself one of these. Nice 100th anniversary era logo for the station. And so let's see here. We got Lily who just jumped aboard, says hi, Bo and Beth. Hi, Lily. How are you? And I was about to say, when Nick was talking about the ham radios, I was talking to Pete today. And during our on-air conversation, I was asking about the ability of the Asheville stations to broadcast. And I wasn't sure. And the good news is that, Pete was on WWNC, the talk radio station there in Nashville for about almost 10 years before he came back to us. And he said that that station and the other ones in that cluster up there they're all simulcasting together. And from what I understand, doing incredible work. And it's something we know about because when Hugo struck our community, this radio station did what any radio community would do as long as they had the means to do it, which is get on the air and be a voice, be a connector, and be a liaison for people. Now, what's going on in Asheville is, like I said, on another level. So to hear that the radio stations have been able to broadcast during this is great news. And I don't have to hear them right now to know the kind of work that they're doing, because it's interesting. We live in this technological age, and phones and apps and huge screen TVs, and people will try to tell you left and right that, radio is a dinosaur. But when radio is all you got, you remember how powerful a force it can be. And I think, at a base level, that's why Beth and I are doing this.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a special medium, and I think one that I don't know, that we appreciate a great deal, and we so appreciate all of you for being part of it every day, and we can only do it because of all of you. So, I mean, tonight we wanted, and for all of you who are there and who are here with us, what questions do you have for us? What are the things that you are wanting to know about what the last few days have been like, or even, it's anything's fair game in this chat, and because we want you all to lead us and talk about the things that you want to hear us talk about.
And I'm glad that we have a group of people on here, because I wasn't sure. This is the kickoff of what's going to be 9 of these, and I knew, given all of the circumstances, tonight might be an unusual night to start, but I'm glad we're here. So let's see.
We just got a great question from Mark. Yeah, Mark says, when these types of stories hit, what people from your background do you draw upon to bring the news to listeners? Well, Mark, working in media, and this, Mark, when you work in media, you end up talking to all different kinds of people for, a various number of reasons over the years. And today, for example, Jim Landis, who is a volunteer firefighter in Blowing Rock, he was someone I connected with almost 20 years ago when I was the host of Fox News Rising over at WCCB. I did a story about the Gaston County Fire Department, and I went in and suited up with him in a full firefighter gear and did what was the equivalent of their training with him. And we became friends after that. And I just reached out to him to see how he was yesterday. And it became a segment or two actually on our show today. But I think this entire job is about relationships. It's about the relationships we have with you all, and it's about the relationship that Bo and I have with each other, and it's about the relationships and connections we've made along the way. And that's how we end up with Governor McCrory on the show, or Mick Mulvaney today for an hour on the show. It really means a lot to me, and I know it does to Bo, to cultivate real, respectful, genuine relationships with people. And we value all of the people that we have on our show. But it's interesting, Mark, to do this, especially, Bo has been in this market his entire career. I've been back and forth from here to the West Coast and back, but in all of that time, you end up having relationships and connections that you draw on, so that you can have people from different backgrounds and with different levels of expertise anytime a story hits. Like Bo and I something happens when a story like this happens, he and I will get on the phone with each other and say, okay, so here's how we should talk about this. And here are the stories that we're not getting, enough information on. And if you listen to the show, you know that I always love to get the real human aspect, how this is impacting individuals and, not just the news part of it, but the human part of it. And that is all dependent upon, relationships and respect and communication style, and making people feel welcome. And the one thing you'll notice about the two of us is we tend to have people who come back to our show. And I think that happens because we're both, Bo and I are both in the business of we want people to look and be able to do their best in the time that they're with us, to be able to say what they feel and say what they mean, and that we're going to be respectful of it. And I'm really, really proud of that, because I don't know that happens a lot anymore. People of different backgrounds might get attacked, or, might feel insulted, or might not feel welcome. And one thing that we really try to do is really make people feel, that their perspective is valid.
Well, Mark, if you all remember producer Mark from back in the day, there was a short period of time where producer Bo and producer Mark were in tandem on the professional radio broadcast. So Mark is a longtime colleague and buddy of mine. And so Mark probably knows what I'm going to say to some of this, but it's interesting. I actually reached out to Al Gardner on Friday after the coverage because he and I text from time to time. I haven't seen Al in a long time, but obviously Al is, for you old timers, Al's the guy that I succeeded when I started back in 2012. And I had worked on Al's original morning show in 1997 when it was called Charlotte's Morning News. But I learned how to do, and there are different modes of show, right? I mean, Beth and I can do a show like today, which we would call the aftermath of something, right? Friday was a day we call sort of breaking news mode. In that case, weather. Sometimes it's politics. And there are days when, and honestly, they're my favorite kind of days, when it's just a normal day, when we kind of sort of be a little bit of everywhere. And that's our favorite kind of thing, because if all things are equal, we want to give you news, weather, traffic, sports, politics, entertainment, pop culture, business, all of the above in about a 30, 45-minute span. So you can sort of be armed with information for your day, and then you take that information and make your own choices or opinions about it and go talk about it with your buddies at work or school or wherever. But when we have a day like Friday, I sort of have a muscle memory that kicks in, and Beth knows this. I kind of go into a mode where it's almost like I do it and don't even think about it when we're breaking news. And I learned that by sitting across from him beside Al Gardner for many years. And, Al is a lot of things to a lot of people, but I think the base thing he is to me is, the guy that I watched do breaking news coverage that it molded me. And so I always say to him on days like Friday, if you ever wonder if your legacy is being carried forward on WBT, if he's been gone for a decade now, but if you wonder if that voice lives on, I hear Al Gardner in my head when I do breaking news coverage. So I reached out to him on Friday, make a long story short, and just said, hey, I was on the air today. We had a pretty heavy story, as we've had over the years. And I said, I felt like you were sitting beside me. And so it's kind of a nod to, a guy I believe is one of the best, breaking news anchors. And I'm thankful that I worked with him. So, there's a guy, for example, that I draw on from background experience. Another one happened today during the show and happened not by accident, but I often talk to Beth about things that just happen organically. And I believe that we've sort of set the table for what this show is. And I think people chime in because they know what we're trying to do. And we're in the middle of coverage today. And I get a text from Jen Goodwin, who used to be Jen Thompson. And back in the day, I met her because she used to work at WBT. She actually did traffic for a little while, and she worked at our FM station, which was 107.9 The Link back then. But back then, her last name was Thompson, and my last name's Thompson. And we used to joke we were brother and sister. But she's somebody that I've known for years, and she went on to do other things. She has worked at the NCDOT for many, many years as a spokesperson, and now she's a great person, got a great voice and a great broadcaster. But there we're doing the show today, and she heard us talking about roads that were open, and she texted me, and I said, well, hey, you should jump on the air with this. And she said, okay. And she jumped on the air with us. And, I think Beth will agree with this, but it was one of the more info-packed 4 minutes of information. I mean, we were asking questions about bridge integrity and asking questions about, if you're headed up there, when does I-40 stop letting people go past a certain point? I mean, these are the things that, some people would say are antiquated in an era of digital and smartphones and, short attention spans that we live in. But, when you drill it down on days like today, it's the old fashioned pick up your phone, call, and we'll amplify your voice over 50,000 watts. And so I bring the Al Gardner example up because that's kind of an old ingrained one.
Who is on, by the way. He says, I am not even at your level. You are the best, Bo, and not kind. So Al Gardner is there. Hey, Al, I'm really sad, Al, that we don't know each other because Bo says that we're very similar.
I can't believe Al's on here. I had no idea. Well, I hope he heard everything of what I said because
he did.
Because he's ingrained in me. And anyway, I'm talking too much.
Well, no, Bobby said, Beth, you have a light reflection on your glasses. So I'm trying to not keep my glasses on the whole time, but I can't read all of this. So I'm going to take them on and off for you, Bobby. Will asked us a question. I'm trying to go back through some of this. He said, can you believe that the election day is nearly 1 month away? I can't wait for election night with you guys. And yes, Bo and I will be doing election night coverage again from the studio. He said, what are your first thoughts about what we might see tomorrow night? Meaning the vice presidential debate. I'm looking forward to it. We were talking off the air with Mick Mulvaney today because Mick was saying, I don't know if people watch the vice presidential debates. And I was going back. I've watched them all. I remember Joe Biden and Sarah Palin. I remember Al Gore and Dick, or not Al Gore, but it was Al Gore's running mate. It was Joe Lieberman and Dick Cheney. I remember Paul Ryan and Joe Biden, and certainly we none of us can forget Kamala Harris and Mike Pence and the fly, on his head. So, I'm excited to watch this debate. I feel like JD Vance is going to be in his element. He is very good under pressure, and I think is going to be very well prepared for tomorrow night. I I think Tim Walz is going to be interesting because his personality is so different from most of the candidates that we see on the campaign trail. You know, I think people say that about Donald Trump too, because when he first hit the scene, his personality and his approach was very different. Tim has this kind of um kind of dad vibe, fun uncle vibe, and I wonder how that's going to play in a debate. And the two juxtaposed with each other, how those two are going to play off of each other. I I think it's going to be a really important part of this election cycle, personally.
Um, I will answer that question, but I wanted to pass on some breaking news as we're on here, and I had to just verify, make sure this is legit. But Pete Rose has died.
Oh,
The all-time hit leader, dead at the age of 83. I don't know if Al's still on here, but I know Al is the biggest Philadelphia Phillies fan that I know, and I know Pete Rose, was best known for his Cincinnati Reds days, but he also played for the Phillies. But wow, there's a story we'll be talking about tomorrow.
oh my gosh.
That is, we also lost earlier this afternoon from the NBA. If you remember, Dikembe Mutombo passed away. So some here we are talking about breaking news, and you just never know what's coming. But I'm kind of processing that one. I'm obviously a big baseball fan. I have the Atlanta Braves game here that they just were the last team to qualify for the postseason. I got on my monitor in here, but rest in peace. Yeah, Al's still on here. Wow, that's tough. So let me get back to the question, since it was asked about. I think Will asked, "What are you expecting about the debate tomorrow night?" I mean, if this is the last debate, I still can't get myself to believe that it is.
I know it's hard to believe that it is.
I have a theory. If you've been listening to the show, I'm gonna stick to it. That I believe that because Trump agreed to and went through with a debate on ABC and also CNN. I've always thought that part of that strategy was to come back and do a second debate or whatever debate it would be at some point on Fox. And I think if you're Trump, you have every reason to say, I went to what many people would say is a non-favorable territory, CNN and ABC. And I did that, one with Biden and one with Kamala Harris. So if Kamala Harris wants to debate, and we know that she does, I still feel like Trump is going to want to before this is all over. I could be wrong, and this may be it tomorrow night. So if this is it tomorrow night, it means, I think by default, if nothing else, that this is probably the most consequential vice presidential debate we've ever seen, just because it's never been under these circumstances. It's always sort of a, yeah, here's the kids' table, right? Here are the two people that are probably never going to be talked about much again, unless they end up running. But most of the time, I mean, it's people like Tim Kaine and Sarah Palin's not a good example, but who are some other of the VPs that we never talk about anymore, Beth? I mean, Dan Quayle, who obviously became vice president. Paul Ryan.
Think about the 2012 election with Paul Ryan. Like, think about who were we talking? We were talking about Kemp today.
Lloyd Benson. We know Lloyd Benson because of the JFK comment or the Kennedy comment. The Jack Kennedy, you're no Jack Kennedy. But I mean, for the most part, in the era of the Commission on Presidential Debates, this is sort of the obligatory other debate, the undercard debate that they do, and it doesn't ever mean much. But now, tomorrow night, I was saying to Mulvaney today, I mean, I said, how much do you think the main candidates are going to be in the ears, not literally, but, giving them coaching, maybe more so than they normally would be, because if this holds up, the schedule holds up, this is the end of the line for this kind of thing tomorrow night. So I also wonder, and I know they will say something about what's happened in North Carolina and in Florida and Georgia, but given the fact that their campaigns have been, they've altered things, rightfully so, because of this natural disaster, I imagine that will come into play tomorrow night. But I'm going to be more attuned to this one than I normally would be. I can say that much.
Michael just wrote us and said, it seems like debates are dying out since so many people have won their primaries and elections without debating as a strategy, and that's a relatively new thing. I think, Ted Budd and Donald Trump and even, even in the primary, this gubernatorial primary, Mark Robinson didn't debate Bill Graham and Dale Folwell. Ted Budd didn't debate in the Senate race. I hope that it doesn't become a trend. And I say that just because I like to see the candidates in longer form. I don't want elections to just be won or lost based on 30-second commercials and sound bites and things like that. I want to see more substance. I wish debates were actually more. And Brett Winterbull and I have talked about this on his show a lot. I wish debates were more like the debates that if you were ever in debate club in high school or college, I wish they were more like that. They were actual debates rather than, just 2-minute spinning, getting to the point you wanted to talk about rather than answering the question. I wish that we actually saw more of the meat of people. So I hope that we don't lose that. I hope we don't lose the debate. I personally, I get a lot out of them as a voter. And I think one of the voters that candidates want. I'm not somebody who votes straight party ticket. And I even when I ran for office, I didn't, because I campaigned with some of the people and I was like, you know what? I'm not voting for that guy. So, I vote based on character, and I vote based on what I hear from people, and I vote based on what I think matches, my worldview. And so they mean something to me, and I hope they don't go away.
Yeah, I don't want them to go away. I feel like, Michael, to your question about that they're dying out, I think, the undercard debates are dying out. Because like Beth said, I think there are candidates like, Ted Budd didn't need to debate, and sort of took that playbook. And he's not the only politician that did that, but he's a Senate candidate, decided not to debate, and President Trump in the primary part of the process we're in right now decided not to debate. And I remember the days of seeing Jesse Helms debate Harvey Gantt, and D.G. Martin and Alec McMillan back in the 80s. And I thought that we were going to have
Walter Mondale.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have some pretty spirited debates, at least one or two, with Jeff Jackson and Dan Bishop. And the only one that they've done was not a. It wasn't. It was to a private group, and it wasn't.
Right. It was a bar
TV station type deal like we've seen in years past. So presidential debates and vice presidential debates are one thing, but I do think, Michael, you're exactly right that down the ladder they're dying out, and I think it's not a good thing when a strategy becomes not to do it.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it, and like I said, gubernatorial debates, primary debates, and what's that even anymore?
When I ran in 2004, we had a debate, on the congressional level. And when I was a TV host for Fox, I used to go over to the PBS station and host the local race debates, for county commission and for city council and for like state senate. And I loved doing that. I loved getting a roundtable discussion going. And I really want to see more of that. I don't want elections to be won on social media and in commercials, because it's so easy to manipulate those messages. And I just, when you get to see people in long form, you get a better sense of them.
Let's see here. That was a question from Michael. We have Mike, Mike's been on here. He's bringing up that Lloyd Benson quote.
Benson.
That was, and we were talking the other day. Let's see, that was 88. We were mentioning the 84 Reagan quote again, and I love the exchange for so many reasons, but I think it sort of crystallizes what Beth and I try to do with the show that we're on. But the 1984 moment where Reagan said to Mondale, the moderator asked about the age question, which here we are in 2024. The age question is every bit as relevant today as it ever was. But back then they were talking about Reagan's age, and he said, I'm not going to, what did he say? I'm not going to exploit my opponent's youth and inexperience. And
Yes.
And Mondale started laughing, and the moderator started laughing. And
Yeah.
when does that ever happen anymore? And I don't know. We need moments in today's high charged atmosphere where we can all laugh at ourselves and
yes,
ignore the political stripes for a few minutes. And look, this is coming from a guy who is a political science major. Beth's a political science major. I've been in hardcore political radio my entire life, and I love election night, and I love so much about the election process. But I have, I have soured on some of the walls we put up around ourselves now because of the side of the aisle that you're on. I mean, it should never be that you don't extend a hand or entertain a friendship strictly based on political stripes. And I know that sounds Pollyannish, I'm sure, but I also think that, if we don't call it out, then it just goes with it. It just happens. So somebody's got to say something.
I hope the Pollyanna in the room has just rubbed off on you, Bo. I hope that that's what's happened.
But I mean, I know some people are going to say, "Oh, you're being, you got rose-colored glasses on. You're being, it's never going to be that way." Well, I mean, look, you have to be the light, right?
Yes.
That's what we're trying to do. So let's see, Jim. And by the way, welcome to Tammy. Welcome to Jim. Welcome to Drew. And by the way, I want to go back up to something Drew said, because Drew said earlier, hey, Bo and Beth from Caldwell County, we're on the edge of the disaster zone. Our neighbors still have no power, but our neighboring counties are really hurting. Morganton was flooded as well. Lots of Burke County has a boil water order. Thank you for giving us Foothills a voice. God bless. Well, thank you, Drew. And Drew pops up in our feeds every now and then. And, people like Drew are the people that make up the bread and butter of the show. So we appreciate you.
Yeah, Drew, we love you. And God bless you and all of your neighbors there. And if, tomorrow, like we'll talk about this, more and it's what Bo and I have been doing is opening up the phones to people like you, Drew, to talk about your friends and your neighbors. And yeah, I saw a post today that Brad Panovich shared, and it was just 2 handwritten pieces of notebook paper from a woman who had just gone around her neighborhood that had been isolated because of roads being flooded and roads being washed out. And she didn't know how to get this piece of notebook paper out to people. But what she had done is gone around and done wellness checks on her friends and neighbors. And she wrote down their names so that she could get them shared. And she got them to the Brad Panoviches of the world and people out like us who can share them and read the names out loud for the people who can't get phone service and can't connect with their loved ones. I mean, how lovely is that human being that person went around home to home and wrote names down on a piece of notebook paper to try to get the word out, because she knew that he knew that somebody out there was wondering and worried and loved those people. And I just think that in tragedy, it's so heartbreaking and it's so hard to, as I was saying earlier, wrap your mind around the devastation. But the best parts of humanity also show themselves, and there is light that comes through these dark cracks because we see the love and the kindness and the people lending a helping hand. And I think that's how we all get through something like this, because those are the things that give us hope and remind us of the best parts of ourselves and the best parts of humanity, the best parts of each other. And the thing that Bo was talking about when he was saying he was being, Pollyanna, but I think it's true, because in these moments, nobody is asking if someone is a Republican or if they're a Democrat or who they're going to vote for or what kind of yard sign they have or what flag they have on their truck. They're just trying to help each other. And that's what we need to get more of every single day, because it's possible to disagree on things. And I think we used to be in a place, at least it felt this way for me. I think we used to be in a place where we all wanted the same thing. We all believed in the same thing for America. Like we had the same goal. We just had different ways of going about it. And now it just seems that people don't want to even entertain someone from the other side. You know, they don't want to entertain another idea. And I think we're moving in the wrong direction if we forget how to be challenged, how to have our own ideas challenged, and if we forget how to change our minds, and if we forget how to admit that we're wrong, and if we forget how to say I'm sorry, all of those are really important parts of the human experience. And I don't know, I just think you have to, if you want to see more of that in the world, I think you have to be more of that in the world. And I hope that's what I hope it comes across that that's what we're trying to do, Bo, right?
I sound like a broken record to people who listen to the show, and I think I said this at the last News and Brews, but I'm going to say it again because to me, there's not a better movie metaphor than Rocky III. I mean, look, I just saw. Let's see. Rodney says, "I love election night. I loathe the 4 years before it." Well, I love election night. It's always been my favorite. That's why we're on the air every election night, because we love it. I love the chase. I love the debates. I love election years, really. But it's because I like watching the horse race. When I was a kid, this will surprise no one, I used to keep a little book on election night, and I would write down, like, at the X time, so-and-so is leading so-and-so. And I would keep track. I would keep a log of it. And then I'd go down to the government center down at the convention center back before we all had phones, and you had to go down there and look at the numbers on the screen.
That does not surprise me at all.
And I'd go get autographs and from everybody. And I loved the chase. And I love all of that. But I also love, so again, back to Rocky III. Rocky Balboa fights the wrestler Hulk Hogan, and it's like it's David versus Goliath, and they go out there and do this thing. But then when it's over, hey, can we get a Polaroid with the family? Can we go grab a beer somewhere? Like, if are past the point where you argue your political philosophy and you can get heated and you can debate, but if we can't go have a beer after it's over, then something's wrong. If you are so stridently against somebody and you make it personal, then that's where we part. And I think if you listen to our show, you know that. I mean, we have Democrats, we have Republicans on, and I said earlier, I'm not pretending that there's not strife and there aren't disagreements and there aren't things that people dig in on. Of course they do. But if you make it, you let it permeate every single part of your being, then what are we doing? See, you made me go Rocky III, Beth, but that's it. That is my philosophy, period.
I love it. And you know what? After election night, Bo, I think we should go find a set of steps. I know we're not going to go to Philadelphia, but we should go find a set of steps and run up them together. We're going to need it anyway, because we're not going to get any sleep on election night leading into the morning after. Rodney says, dork in a good way. I don't know, Rodney, are you talking about me or are you talking about Bo?
Oh, he's talking about me. I have no doubt. Because as far as I know, we were in a lot of places together that we've discovered over the years. I don't think you were at the convention center.
Have y'all all, I don't know if you all have heard all of that, but Bo and I realized, that our mothers went to high school together and graduated in the same graduating class here in Charlotte. And Bo and I went to the same dentist as children. So we, I'm sure, sat in the lobby and probably tried to find Waldo together at some point. Which means that we hung out on Smurf Island at Carowinds. And we both think that we were in a carriage at the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus together behind was it an elephant that was pulling the carriage, Bo, or was it a horse? But I think we were
I think it was an elephant. Hang on, I got a picture over here. Hey, talk amongst yourself.
Of us? When we were kids? But like the crazy things that we found out of the places that we were together as young people, and that we didn't actually meet face to face until I think February of 2020. But we grew up in the same area. We've been in the same media market forever. And he and I talked on the phone. I did interviews with him when I was covering the Olympics in 2016 for NBC and was down in Rio, but we only talked on the phone. So when we met for lunch for the very first time to talk about doing this show, this is how long this was in the works. We started talking about this in 2020. I had to Google Bo Thompson because I was meeting him at Panera Bread over at Cotswold, and I had to Google him because I didn't know who I was looking for. I had only heard him. I had never actually seen him, and I was like, "How weird is it that I've never seen him?" And then as fate would have it, and life would have
This
it,
is what he looked like, right?
yes.
Yeah.
I was looking for Huey Lewis. That's what I was looking for. Brett Winterble just asked, "Hey, Brett Winterble." I love that Brett Winterble's on. Brett Winterble said, "If you could go back."
Maybe it was this that you're looking for.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you didn't look like that. I might have gotten scared. If you had been there shirtless and oiled up, that would have been weird. Brett says, if you could go back in time for one day in the 80s or 90s, what would it be? Just one day?
Oh man.
Ooh. I'm trying to think of, there were so many fun, I mean, I was in high school in the 90s. I graduated from high school in 1995. Okay. I have a dorky one. I have a dorky answer. This is just completely like personal dork. Brett Winable, you are a great American. And thank you, by the way, to Craft Body Scan. They're helping put this on, and they've made all of this happen. So thank you to Craft Body Scan. I don't know if y'all know this. I've talked about it on the show before, but I was in an a cappella group in college. And one of the greatest days. So you had to audition for this a cappella group. Like it was like intense auditions. And the way that you found out that you were in the group and I didn't know this when I auditioned for the group, but they would come to your dorm room in like the middle of the night and knock on your door and sing the UNC theme song, and then like kidnap you and take you to Waffle House. And it was like the best. I had no idea that this happened. So I'm like in a t-shirt and I open the door and there's this crowd of people. It was like 3:00 in the morning. There's this crowd of people singing Hark the Sound. And I don't know. It was just a really cool moment. I'd like to go back to that moment and relive what that felt like. But
That's a cool story, Beth. Cool story.
I don't know if you know this. I was in an a cappella group.
Mine would have to be the summer of 1985, because that, of course, coincided with the greatest song ever released, "Power of Love" by Huey Lewis, and the movie it came from, Back to the Future, hitting theaters. I mean, 1985. So that was the summer, and then, if I recall correctly, that fall, Rocky IV. I actually never saw Rocky III in the theater, as crazy as that sounds, but that was just a great 84, 85. I mean, just the heyday of the 80s. That would be mine. Let's see here. What else we got going on?
Michael just asked a great question. Who was your favorite interview? Each of us. And Michael, are you asking, and you can answer this, are you asking since we've been doing the show together, or just in general?
Well, I would like to know the answer to that question from you.
Since we've been together?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I can't. I mean, it was a pretty awesome day when we interviewed the Taste the Biscuit people. But
Yes.
But you know, one that was surprising to me that I really enjoyed, and this isn't the politics part of it. I'm not talking about the political part of it, even though it's very much a political interview. But I really enjoyed interviewing Mike Pence. He kind of went into a different mode that wasn't like the Mike Pence that we had seen in debates and we had seen when he was vice president. He just kind of went into this his kind of radio, his old radio mode. And again, I'm not talking about the politics of it, whether you like or dislike him. I thought he was a really interesting interview. And he went into a fun story about the fly on his head from the debates. And it was surprising to me how much personality he had. But I also enjoyed interviewing Nikki Haley. She was a really interesting interview and a really fun interview. I'm trying to think of the Taste the Biscuit people were that was a really funny interview. But my gosh, Bo, we've interviewed so many people together.
Well, and I love the Thurston Howell stuff too, especially the first one, the Thurston Howell interview that we did in January. You have to understand, and by the way, I hope most of you know Thurston Howell is the yacht rock band that we've become friends with, that I believe has been on the show 3 times now. So the first time, then another time in April when I was out, and then when we went to the beach, this most recent time in August. But the very first time was the morning after Beth and I moderated the 8th district debate down at Wingate. So we were coming off just fumes.
Yeah, we had like an hour of sleep.
And we got to the studio that day.
And if you remember, I was so tired, I forgot to wear shoes. I had on bedroom shoes.
I don't know. Those guys are just awesome. Every time they come on the show, they just get it. They get what we do. And they're so talented in their own right. And I think there's this sort of, I don't know what it is, but there's this sort of energy we get from them and they get from us. And then especially at the beach when we had all, boomers on set with us down there and HAs there and they come in. I look back on that day as, just sometimes when things are just kind of radio magic is happening. If I'm thinking of one's interviews, I always go back to the American Dream, Dusty Rhodes, back in 2014, who was a very well-known professional wrestler. But the thing that was cool about it was he didn't do many interviews, and he did the interview about 6 months before. 6 months before he died, or it may have been a year. It was within a year abouts that he died, and he just came on and was Zoki and I did it together, and it was a lot of fun. And here's one you may not think, and I haven't really talked much on the air, but I really liked it, and I don't even know why. It just kind of when Woody Durham passed away. I guess that was almost 10 years ago or thereabouts. The voice of the Tar Heels. I had Jim Hefner on, who used to do games with Woody Durham on the Tar Heel Sports Network when I was a kid. And I used to, Woody and Jim, and through later years, Woody and Mick Mixon. But, Woody was that voice, was synonymous with the Tar Heels and with WBT when I was coming up, one of the voices. And Jim came on with me. I tracked him down and invited him to come on. This is long after he retired from the radio, but he came on after Woody Durham died, and we had a really nice conversation. And it seemed to me like he felt sort of touched that all these years later we went to the trouble to do that interview. And I just always look back fondly on that one. And you have a feeling about certain ones. So there's some interviews that I know Beth's the same way, that are sort of obvious ones. And then there are some that sort of just happen and it all kind of just worked out well in the air. So those are a few interviews from my standpoint.
I had the pleasure of interviewing Blair Underwood. I used to do a morning show for Lifetime, and he was so much fun. I really actually enjoyed that interview, and I always forget. You have to tell me, Bo, the guy that does Fox NFL, bald guy. He was in Failure to Launch.
Oh, Terry Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw. One of my, hands down, when I was working in television, one of my favorite interviews. And our interview was via satellite. We did like this top 10 thing, and it was a lot of fun. He was really funny. And the guy that played La Bamba.
Lou Diamond Phillips.
Diamond Phillips was a really, really lovely interview. I enjoyed him, and this was before I started with Bo. But it looks like Bo said, there are interviews that just happen that you don't know are going to end up just being moments that live in your memory or that are burned into your memory. Mitch says, Beth, you pregame family when you used a word I've only heard my sister use.
Scared?
When you described your version to the mail on the counter. I'm trying to think how I don't remember what I said. I mean, yeah, I do. I do talk about my mail. I have a whole issue with mail. Problems.
I'm winning.
Celebrity contest. I can't think of names. This is how the whole show works. I'm like, who is it, Bo?
And they're obscure. Oh, look, it's Mark Muller. How about that? Hey, Mark.
Hey,
how you doing,
Mark.
man? Mark is one of our former news anchors and worked in the WBT newsroom, and haven't heard from him in a while. So I hope you're doing well. Let's see. Hello to Mitch, and let's see. We've
and Mitch is my family too. I'll be your family any day, my friend. Well, I mean, we're already past our time. This flew by. I love y'all so much, and it's not like Bo. I mean, Bo and I talk to each other constantly, and we just keep on talking.
Yeah, we don't know the mics are on.
We don't know we have microphones. We don't know that this is actually broadcasting anywhere.
So Mark is happy, and I'm happy because the Braves won and the Mets won, and the Diamondbacks go home.
That's baseball, right?
Yeah,
I'm kidding. Yeah. I'm kidding.
No, it's women's professional soccer. So the Braves and the Mets had two not extra games, postponed games today, and the Mets won the first one and the Braves won the second one, and the Diamondbacks are on the outside looking in. But I was worried there about the Braves for a minute. So the first game was quite a game. The second game, I felt like I was joking with Zoki because we were saying that it was going to be the Braves versus like the front office part-time workers for the Mets, because see, this is the thing. Both these teams won today, but then they got to turn around and begin their postseason tomorrow. I think it is. So you're hesitant to use people, but the Braves kind of had to. Tammy, thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody. Like Beth said, I knew this would kind of be a slow start because it's just it's a heavy day. It's a tough time. I mean, my goodness, Al Gardner checked in. I still can't believe that.
And Brett Winterbull checked in, and our newest talent, Nick, checked in.
I don't know. I think Nick's probably gone. Maybe he's still here, but Nick.
He has to be up bright and early or dark and early tomorrow.
So Nick hosts the new Carolina Journal News Hour, which is now 5 a.m. to 6 a.m. before us. So if you're longtime listeners, that's a change. So he's on for an hour, and then we're on for our regular 4 hours. But he's been a great addition to the team. He's based out of Wilmington, and has done a lot of radio over his years, and has, like I said, we're all still getting to know him too. But I think it's really cool that he joined us tonight. So thanks to Al Gardner, and thanks to Nick, and thanks to Brett Winterbull and Mark Muller, an alum who's out there. Mark Seiler, Mark Thomas. It was great to hear from Mark earlier, and we hear from Mark. Coming up on Wednesday, it's going to be Mark Garrison, Brandon Dixon, and Jeff Atkinson. So the newsroom, and then Monday, a week from tonight, will be Brett Winterbull and Pete Callender. And a week from Wednesday is going to be Brett Jensen and yours truly. And Brett and I have been discussing the possibility of, Brett sometimes sits up on his roof when he does.
Sometimes he always does, with like a sifter of brandy.
So I'm thinking maybe I need to go join him. Go hang out on the roof.
I think that you absolutely should.
So that would be fun. Oh, look, Marcia.
Our boss is
Marcia
on.
Landis, our fearless leader, is here tonight. So that's perfect. Look, last person I see on the screen. That's really cool. And she's the one who is the leader of all of us, and Radio One, and not just this radio station, but all of our stations. And the last thing I should probably say, and I'm thinking about Marcia, because we've been in conversations at the station today about plans going forward. A lot of listeners have been asking, what can we do to try to help our friends in Western North Carolina? And are you all going to be doing something? And what are reputable places to send your money and your resources? And so you're going to hear about some things in the coming days that we have in the works. Starting tomorrow, we'll start talking about, namely, getting those organizations out there and repetition on the 50,000 watts that so people can, they're telling you not to travel to Western North Carolina, and for understandable reasons. But, I know everybody has this kind of helplessness about what can I do? I want to do something. I know that people are in peril right now while we're doing this. And you're going to be hearing in the coming days across our show and all the rest of the shows, ways you can do that. And we have some things in the works that we're working on. And so just know that, our thoughts are with those people just like yours are. And we're going to be the good stewards of the 50,000 watts to make sure that we can use those call letters for good, because that's what we've always done in times like this.
Yes, absolutely. And we love you all. And we are so grateful to this family, this family of people that we work with, people like Marcia, people like Brett Winterbull, people like Brett Jensen. We're so lucky for that family, but we're really lucky for the family out there. You all make all of this possible, and you make our jobs so worthwhile. So thank you. And you've made tonight worthwhile, and we love you all for it. And we will we'll talk to you again in the morning. Hopefully you'll all join us there as well. I know. Cheers. I've been drinking water. I'm sorry I get dry mouth. I'll cheers with my Chihuahua.
Phyllis says hello, everybody. She's upstairs. Good night.
Good night, everybody. And thank you again to Craft Body Scan.